Hello and welcome to Solutions, a program about Falmouth and Falmouth's issues and struggles, and the people who are standing up and trying to fight those struggles and make some solutions for the community. I'm your host, Eileen Preston, and today we're talking about the opioid addiction, specifically the difficulties in staying sober and some of the programs we need to do to get people to stay sober. Our guest today is Amy Doherty. She's the founder and president of WellStrong, which is a new nonprofit opening up on Main Street here in Falmouth. Amy Doherty, thanks for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm really happy to be able to talk with you today.
Well, it's great. I'd like you to start by giving us a big picture of the opioid crisis in Massachusetts. It's obviously in the nation, in Falmouth as well.
Right. I don't think it's a secret to anybody. You know, it's in the news, and it's a crisis. It's an epidemic. I mean, people are dying. Our kids are dying. I think in 2016 in Massachusetts alone, there were 2,000 deaths, close to 2,000 related to opioid overdoses. Right. That's about 5 a day. Of those, 78 were on Cape Cod. You know, it's a real problem. It's not even just the deaths, the relapses. You know, whether it's opioid relapses or whether it's alcohol, it's a real problem. You know, that you hear about Narcan and it's saving lives, but the addiction just has a hold on people. It's got a hold on. It makes changes to their brains in ways that they. You know, they try to get better, and they're just finding it really difficult to stay clean, to stay sober, without a lot of different supports in the community. And the other, it's not just the opioid crisis either. You know, on Cape Cod, we've got a huge alcohol problem.
Right.
There are like double the amount of people addicted to alcohol on Cape Cod than all other drugs combined.
Yeah, it's like a silent epidemic.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
And now, for relapses, I think I saw in your research it was almost 90% relapse rates.
Yeah, yeah.
And
for opioids. For
opioids.
Yeah.
So, and that brings us to your program,
Right.
WellStrong.
Right.
So you're trying to help people
Right.
prevent relapse.
Absolutely.
So tell us more about your program.
Okay. So, you know, life in recovery is a very difficult time for people. You know, when you go through treatment, your life is, you're at the bottom. You know, things are as bad as they can get. We see it in the papers. And so when somebody goes through treatment for addiction, they are dealing with shame, depression. You know, their bodies have been through horrible things, and they're just not in a good place. And so people think that after addiction, people go through treatment and then they should be better.
Right.
But that's just the beginning. The beginning, the beginning is now starting this new life in recovery, and how do you move forward? How do you move forward when you've lost relationships, you don't have a job, you feel, you know, horrible about yourself? And so there are a lot of different supports that we need to think about for people in recovery, and from helping people find a job to whatever it is that's helping them, whether it's a 12-step program or medicated assistant treatment. But even so, it goes deeper than that. And so what WellStrong is doing is bringing other healthy life practices to people in recovery. Things like exercise, fitness, yoga, meditation, mindfulness, so that it's learning how to, you know, take some old patterns into new healthy patterns and live a healthy life in recovery.
So your facility is opening up on Main Street?
Yes.
And it's opening next month, or?
Yes, we're relying on volunteer efforts. We're a grassroots nonprofit, so we have raised in just over a year enough money to, you know, to pay rent, to open, and to have volunteers for our phase 1. We do have a phase 2 once we raise some more funds. And so we're doing it all ourselves. We're getting the building ready. We're painting, we're scraping, we're laying floors. And so because we're relying on volunteers, we don't have an exact opening date,
right.
But it looks like it will be end of October, beginning of November at the latest.
And your volunteer family and friends, or are these people in recovery?
A little of both. I will have to say the recovery community is coming together, supporting this more than I ever would have expected. It's fabulous to see. You know, somebody will reach out to friends, and I'm meeting so many people, and they show up, and everybody's there because they see things that have helped them, and they want to give back. So for example, when we open, we're going to have some classes, different wellness classes, and one young mother said, when you open, I want to babysit because during my recovery, I didn't have anybody taking care of my son, and that would have made a big difference to me. And then we've got a lot of people that are coming to help paint and to help do things to get ready just because it was good for them. Or another woman said she wouldn't have gotten sober if it wasn't for yoga, and so she wants to help get ready and then help teach so that she can share that. And this is what I'm seeing. Everybody wants to help other people with what helped them.
And has there been, it seems like you found some studies that physical fitness and meditation help with recovery, and why is that?
So especially with opioids, but with all addiction, they've done a lot of studies with opioids that the drug affects the dopamine receptors in the brain. So when people are using the drugs, they create a lot of dopamine that takes over, kind of hijacks the brain of the addict. And so they can't make rational decisions. They have a very difficult time. The cravings overtake them. And so after going through treatment, the brain is still wired that way, and it takes a long time to undo that wiring. And so people in recovery are having to fight these cravings on a daily basis. They've done separate studies, some with just exercise and some with mindfulness and meditation, that show that exercise will undo those changes. For example, running releases endorphins and dopamine, but it does it in a healthy way. And so the brain can now go back and will actually change. They studied the brain, will actually change in a way so that it reduces cravings, so they go away. And then they've studied rats. They put drugs in cages, and they have rats on a wheel, and then they'll put rats in another cage with no exercise wheel, and the ones that aren't running go back to the drug more often than the ones that were running on the wheel. So there's a number of studies. And then on the meditation side, there are studies that show that meditation and yoga calms that craziness in the mind and helps with depression and all these other side effects that a lot of people in recovery are dealing with, and helps people be able to look in and be more comfortable with themselves. When they're using, they don't want to think about themselves. It's too hurtful to do that. So
they sit with the discomfort for a bit and learn to,
exactly. And there are studies that show that that's making a difference in reducing cravings and relapse as well.
And trauma yoga, I guess you're going to do that as well, right?
Yes.
Can you talk about what that is?
Trauma-informed yoga is a type of yoga where the instructor is very aware of the feelings of somebody that has gone through something very traumatic, and so the instructor will know certain signs to look out for. For example, they might know not to just go to touch people because some people may not want to be touched, or how to use certain poses or breathing to help people who have been through certain experiences and be able to calm in a way that might be different than somebody else. So they're just aware of traumatic experiences and things that they can do that are more helpful, that can be helpful during a yoga class.
How many teachers do you have?
It's amazing. Right now, I said we have 2 phases. We have a volunteer phase, and eventually we will probably be hiring. But just in our volunteer alone, when we open up, we'll have 3 yoga teachers that will be doing a couple of times a week. We'll have 1 yoga person that will be doing a workshop once a month. We have 2 people that have offered to do some fitness with circuit weight training, and another person who just called me up in recovery, just completed a half Ironman triathlon, and said to me such a difference in his recovery. He wants to help people train for races. We have some people leading walks and runs. Got a young woman who is in recovery who is going to be boxing. She's in a match at the end of this month, and she wants to teach kickboxing.
Oh, wonderful.
So the number of people just volunteer alone is phenomenal.
I think we have some slides about testimonials. People have said that kickboxing has helped them because it helps them with their aggression, and yoga just to breathe through an uncomfortable situation, right?
Absolutely.
So How did you get involved in this?
A couple of things in my life came together all at the right time, I'll have to say. My connection to addiction, it goes back to my family, and I know my father, he's an artist, and he talks about his addiction to alcohol publicly, so he wouldn't mind me talking about this. But I grew up in a home where he was an active drinker, and it was very volatile. And but when I was a teenager, he stopped drinking, and he was going to AA. My mom was going to Al-Anon, and so I was exposed to 12-step and the whole program, and eventually went to some of my own meetings, and so I had a connection there. And then when I was older, my brother, in his 30s, he had been dabbling in alcohol and drugs a little bit, but in his 30s, it turned into a real problem and extended to some other drugs, to the point where we needed to do a family intervention. And we went through Gosnold at that point. And I remember it was a snowstorm the night that we actually did the intervention. And I don't know if you're familiar with how those work, but everybody will rehearse for a couple of times that is going to be present when you bring the person in. And you basically talk to your loved one, and you explain to them why you want them to stop this behavior that's hurting them, why you love them, and it could be a sister, a child, a mother, a friend. You get all the important people in the room. And we go around and we all say why we want this person, my brother, to stop. And then you give them the chance to say, okay, I will go into treatment now or not. And you don't know how he's going to react. So my brother said, yeah, I'll go. So in the middle of a snowstorm, my mother and my sister brought him down to Gosnold. And he went through the whole program. He was in detox. He went to the treatment right after. He was in their residential program at Miller House, and lived in recovery for 7.5 years. And after 7.5 years of working construction with a sober crew, meeting his wife, who he was married for 3 years, he died in the middle of the night at age 39 of a heart attack. So his recovery, very successful one, was cut short. Yeah. And my parents asked my husband and I at the time, who were race directors of some local 5Ks, if we would put on a race in his memory to raise money for Gosnold. So we agreed, and we did. And this past, we're into October, the beginning of September, we had the 7th annual David Lewis Run for Recovery.
Here in Falmouth.
Here in Falmouth.
Oh, wonderful, yes. Big race.
Stopped and started at Gosnold. It's a wonderful feeling. It's a road race with very positive energy, and a lot of people will say, oh yeah, I ran that my first year sober, and I haven't missed that in 3 years, and it's a really neat event. And we're hoping to make it an even bigger event. So that began my connection with Gosnold. And I had some time to volunteer, and running had always been important to me. At one time, I might as well, yeah, sure. This is part, I said things all come together. So I was an athlete, and I would compete a lot in triathlons, and was very, very active in the Cape. And then I got sick and didn't know exactly what it was. And for about 3 years, could barely run a mile. I had actually completed an Ironman triathlon, and I was so sick I couldn't run a mile. It was during that time that I added meditation and yoga to what I was doing. And once I got well...
So you talk the talk, you walk the walk. Yeah, great.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then once I got a little bit better, I could start exercising again. And I know that the reason why I got better was because of the whole mind-body connection. It wasn't just the medication I was on.
Right.
It was, I had done the yoga, the meditation, and the exercise to help my whole body heal. So that was my experience.
Yes.
So I wanted to share that with people in recovery. So I started volunteering at Emerson House, which is the residential house for women.
Yes.
Through Gosnold in Falmouth. And I would show up once a week on Fridays to lead a walk-run. And we would walk for, depending on who was there, walk maybe for 20 minutes, and then I might come back and get the walk joggers, and we do that for 20 minutes. And I got to know the women because they were there for a while, and we got talking. And that's where they would say things to me like you would see in those quotes, like, if it wasn't for yoga, I wouldn't be alive. You know, if it wasn't for boxing, you know, boxing saved my life. And they were talking about how at Emerson House they were doing yoga, and they were going to the gym, and people would come in and do meditation. But then when they got out of treatment, they weren't continuing it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, some people could afford a gym membership, most couldn't.
Yeah.
They're dealing with shame and guilt, and I think, you know, it was
Self-esteem issues. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. So trying to go to a gym, it just wasn't comfortable, or they were busy with trying to find a job and a place to live, and they couldn't afford, you know, they couldn't afford all these healthy practices that had made these differences, and that's just what gave me the idea that it just made sense.
So you're building a community,
Yes.
and beyond the actual physical exercising, you also hope to have ski trips and hiking trips.
Yeah, yeah. And as a matter of fact, one of our current volunteers already wants to bring people hiking in the mountains on weekends.
So, how are you getting your clients?
So we've been networking, and we're going to be doing a lot more networking very closely with Gosnold, certainly reaching out to the sober homes. There are over 50 sober homes in Falmouth.
50 over in
Yeah,
Falmouth.
yeah, Falmouth area alone. You know, I'm sure the number fluctuates a little bit, but we're talking to people, the criminal justice system. You know, we'll be working with them just to get the word out that we're here, so that people have options. There's the word of mouth in this community, the recovery community is great. You know, people always are talking with what's helping them. And then, you know, just all kind of health organizations. Hopefully we'll be working.
The hospital?
Yeah, Cape Cod Healthcare, the Community Health Center in Mashpee.
Yes.
So they actually have an addiction program where they want to bring a lot of different healthy practices into their program, where they're treating medically assisted treatment for people in recovery. So we'll be reaching out to all those organizations, letting them know we're here. We're free for the first 90 days for everybody who walks through our doors.
And how do you keep track of?
We've got a software system that can keep track of all that information, attendance, and we're going to have an attendance requirement for people in early recovery for the during that free period. And then after the 90 days, we'll sit down and we'll talk to everybody about where they are and make sure it's affordable. And for those people who can't afford $10 a month or $20 a month, perhaps they could help volunteer in our center. You know, do some cleaning, do some, you know, working at the desk or something like that. So.
And specifically, what facilities do you have? You have, I think you said you have a bicycle, spin bikes, and what do you?
So we have our cardio and our free weight area.
Okay.
So we'll have a few treadmills. We'll have a bicycle, a couple of small machines, and some free weights. We're not going to have any of the real heavy-duty Nautilus type machines.
Right.
But we will have some weights through circuit classes and free weights and TRX systems and those kinds of things. That's our front area of the space. The back area, we have a large room where we can have all the classes, the yoga classes, large meditation groups. There are also 2 smaller rooms. Right now, we can't really use them because we need to add, there's 3 walls, we need to add a door, but eventually we could have babysitting. We could have a nice little community room, you know, where people can have coffee before or after, and have some literature, have some small meetings there even.
Beautiful.
So
for people listening now who might think, oh, I know somebody who might benefit from this program, what would you tell them? Could they look you up on a website, or how would they get involved with your group?
Website for sure, except our website is still in development, but it's in development, so that should be coming out about the same time we open. We will have ways to sign up online, tied in with our website eventually, with the software that will keep track of all of our members. The best way might be just to email or go to the website, walk in.
You'll take a walk in.
We absolutely. The prerequisite basically is to be sober for at least 48 hours and to have a desire to live a sober life. And those are the 2 things that we're asking, and a commitment to stay well.
And before we close, because time is short, I just want to ask you, what do you think people out there should know about the ways, the struggles that people have? What do you want to say about helping people in recovery?
So we've been hearing a lot that addiction is a disease. It's becoming more widely known and accepted, but I think a lot of people still don't understand what that means. And I think if you think about a person with a substance use disorder, that it is a disease, and it does, as we spoke about, it does take over the brain, and so some of their choices aren't really choices, and most people don't want to be an addict. They don't want to be addicted, and there's always a piece of them that wants to get sober. And if we can help, especially if somebody has gone through treatment, and we can help find that part in them and give them the tools to keep working at it, whether it's through support or giving them a chance if they do relapse and not judging, or giving them, helping people find a job, or just not, being kind and letting them know that, or believing that they're people just, like we are. There's really no difference other than they have a disease that has taken over their brain, and unfortunately made a lot of them, make some poor decisions that they've regretted. But they really are real people just like us.
Beautiful. And they can get well.
And they can get well, and they can stay well. And I saw it with my brother. I've seen it with my dad, who's been sober for almost 40 years.
Congratulations. So, it can be done, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Amy Doherty, thank you very much, and good luck with this project.
Thank you.
We're going to keep an eye out for it in the next couple of weeks, opening up right on Alphonse Street.
Alphonse Street.
Beautiful. And thank you all for watching, and let's all keep working and fighting for solutions.